Ladies and gentlemen, people are very angry about politics. Quote, you're awake right now, you're not dead, and you haven't gone to hell, unquote, said Rachel Maddow, the former host on CNN, following the 2016 election. Donald Trump had similar words following the 2020 election. Quote, you're not going to have a country anymore, unquote. Late night host Jimmy Kimmel wept following the 2024 election. Quote, it was a terrible night for women and children, poor people, for the middle class, for democracy and decency. Unquote. Here, Rachel Maddow, Donald Trump, and Jimmy Kimmel made sensational claims. But they didn't make their claims to resolve a problem. Instead, they wanted drama. And they achieved it by displaying shock and anger to the cameras. This is false outrage. Even though false outrage is designed for the cameras, it influences others. Actually, it doesn't influence others, it infects them. False outrage is a disease. We'll start with the diagnosis of this disease in our culture, move on to its symptoms, and conclude with the cure. If American culture would walk into a doctor's office, it would come away with a severe diagnosis of false outrage. Outrage is everywhere. A study in Science magazine by Killian McLaughlin and her colleagues found that, quote, social media posts that express outrage are liked and shared more, training users to express more outrage and ranking algorithms to amplify it, unquote. For example, Benny Johnson, a conservative podcaster, uses false outrage to attract views. One of his recent videos featured an AI-generated thumbnail of Californian Governor Gavin Newsom fuming, holding a burning dollar bill in front of the Hollywood sign, which was also burning. In another, Donald Trump in Eskimo clothing screams along with Vladimir Putin? This doesn't make any sense. But Benny Johnson has 15 million followers. Unfortunately, false outrage doesn't stay online. Humans copy the behaviors and worldviews of the people they spend their time around. And because talk show hosts and media figures consume a significant portion of many people's days, their worldview seeps into the culture. Unfortunate statistics demonstrate this. According to the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, a free speech organization, quote, this year more than 2/3 of students said that shouting down a speaker is at least rarely accepted, unquote. The report noted that these numbers had risen significantly over the past few years. I've experienced false outrage in public. 3 years ago, my grandparents and I went to the March for Life in Washington, D.C. After the march ended, I decided to keep my poster as a souvenir. A woman saw my poster and began screaming at 13-year-old me. Likely her beliefs came from political commentators online, but they caused her to take action in the real world. She believed yelling at 14-year-olds makes you a better person. Now that we've diagnosed our culture with false outrage, let's talk about the symptoms. Here they are. An ability to have constructive conversations with a major side effect of believing that false outrage makes us good people. As writers for The Minimalist, a blog that encourages simple living, put it, quote, we've all gotten offended without asking ourselves why, and then used our fake outrage to cast judgment on others. It helps us feel better. And pretending to be offended is much easier than attempting to breach the walls of introspection, unquote. When we pretend to be outraged, we don't have to ask, why do I believe this? Piers Morgan, the very British host of a political show with 4 million followers, uses false outrage to avoid hard questions. In 2017, when a guest on a show questioned his stance on gun policy, he responded, how dare you? His face tightening for the camera. When his guest answered, well, you can keep saying that, but my point still stands, Piers did not address his point. Again, how dare you? He repeated. Nothing Piers Morgan said advanced the debate. Instead, he used outrage to shield himself, because outrage is easier than analysis. The side effect of false outrage is that some people do it because they think it makes them better people. I know this sounds crazy, but the research proves it. While studying false outrage, psychologist Joshua Grubbs and his colleagues found that, quote, participants self-reported their motivation as status seeking, unquote. Stephen Colbert, another late night host, has done exactly that. After Donald Trump held a rally at Madison Square Garden in New York City, Colbert said, quote, I'm sure it's just a coincidence, but in 1939 they held a pro-Nazi rally there, unquote. With this remark, Colbert insinuated that Donald Trump is Nazi adjacent. Having created a straw man out of Trump, an evil Nazi, Stephen Colbert spared no words, swearing at Trump live on national television. His statements make sense because his worldview treats outrage, even at exaggerated or symbolic evil, as virtuous. Author Glenn Beck describes the human effect of false outrage in his book, Addicted to Outrage. Quote, it deprives human beings of genuine humanity, replacing it instead with an outwardly facing caricature of a virtuous human being wrapped around a rotting corpse. Unquote. This sickly worldview has morality backwards. False outrage replaces good deeds with outraged words. The culture celebrates false outrage. Politicians and media figures promote it. They don't deserve all the blame. Their worldview does deserve the blame. Their worldview is false. Fake outrage is not a virtue, and moral grandstanding is not a good deed. The moral confusion of media hosts has eroded the genuine compassion of millions and transformed it into outrage. But I wouldn't have accomplished anything if I told you to be outraged at false outrage. That would be a pretty lame cure to this sickness. I used to be addicted to outrage. I was angry at every news story. Thankfully, I was convicted after reading Glenn Beck's book, Addicted to Outrage. I realized what I had been doing. Quote, set your minds on things above, not on earthly things, says Colossians 3 verse 2. I made a pledge to stop being outraged at earthly things. Imagine if everyone stopped practicing false outrage. If everyone stopped being so angry, if we calmly discussed difficult questions, and stopped believing our outrage makes us good people. That's the world I want to live in. And that world is only possible if you join me. To take a quote from Darth Vader in Star Wars completely out of context, quote, with our combined strength, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy. So reject false outrage and embrace genuine connection, because life is too amazing to waste being angry.